When was the last time you felt defeated? And I mean truly defeated, the kind of defeated that makes you hang your head and there's nothing else you can do but let out just a deep sigh. Well, if I was answering that question, I would say 5 minutes ago, where I finally put together my script for the next video I was creating when I imported the first gameplay footage into DaVinci Resolve, and I realized I didn't have any audio, and I was like, "That's a little weird." So I went in, tried to figure out what was going on. When I took a look at OBS, and I have it pulled up right here in front of me, and none of my audio sources were connected. And I was like, "Oh crap, this is bad. How long has this been going on for?" And yeah, all of the I started counting, and then I just got defeated, and decided, you know what, we are going to just totally scrap everything I had planned for my next video, and I'm just going to tell the story of another time I felt defeated, and embarrassed, and just, oh man, yeah, a lot of feelings. I actually alluded to this in my last video, regarding the what are the odds. I'm sure most of you know what are the odds, and if you don't, let me just set the stage. It's actually a really simple game in concept. I think it's more than a game. It's something that you have to respect if you want to truly get the most out of it. Now, the way that what are the odds works is, I'll use another example, not the one for this story, but another one in my life, that happened. My friend and my brother were hiking in the Red River Gorge, beautiful landscape in Kentucky, USA. And we get to this beautiful scene where there's this massive arch overhead and there's a waterfall. Maybe some of you have been there. I don't know. Um, but just absolutely gorgeous. And it was a pretty cold day, probably in the 40s or so. So not too bad. Great for hiking. When I look at my brother and I'm just like, "Hey, what are the odds that you take off your shirt and go stand in that waterfall?" And of course he looks at me and he's like, "Oh my, here we go. All right." Now I'm going to explain the way that I've always played it. It's pretty simple. When I've brought what are the odds up with other people, I've heard of different kind of ways that people do it, and I think the way that I've done it is kind of the basic bare bones version, where really only one person is up for risk. But there's some other ways you can kind of modify it to make it a bit more exciting. Anyway, so the way that it works is he picks his range. So in this case, 20, and then the person who asks what are the odds counts down from three. So I went 3, 2, 1, and then both people pick a number from that range, 1 to 20 in this case. And if they say the same number, that task must be completed. And sorry, brother, but I have got a video of him on my phone of him standing in that waterfall, and yeah, that was a pretty great memory. But I digress. There I go telling whole stories when that's not even the whole point of this video. The story I wanted to tell for this video. This video's story happened in college. And for any of you who've been in college or have been out of college, you will understand that things that happen in college sometimes are best left staying in college. This might be one of the most retold stories I've ever told to friends and people who definitely do not want to hear this story, but it is just one that is just such, dealing with the consequences of one's actions. And that brings me back to about how I felt 10 minutes ago, which was just straight up defeated, head hanging low, and here we are making a completely different video than I had planned. So, okay, what actually happened in college? Well, as you know, it's a what are the odds story. So this story takes place in front of my then girlfriend, now wife, and her three closest friends at college, which is not a great start considering what's coming. So I'm hanging out with my wife and a couple of her friends, and one of her friends was actually coming back from her job, and she brought back some soft pretzels, I believe, but the the main story revolves around the salt that goes on the soft pretzels, and it was this whole like half pint container of just pure soft pretzel salt. Now I'm a salt guy. I like salt. I probably a little bit too much. But I'm not the kind of guy that just goes out of my way and just, eats some salt minerals. Not that there are probably many people out there that are like that. But anyway, this whole what are the odds game has been something that my friends were familiar with. And this one friend who brought the salt home, she looks at me and she goes, "Hey, what are the odds that you take a spoonful of this and eat it?" I'm like, that's low stakes, right? It's just a spoonful. It's just salt. I get it's like salt that goes on soft pretzels and they're a little bit, bigger, more salty. It tastes better in my opinion. So I'm like, okay, there's not much of a downside. It's just going to be kind of gross, whatever. So I don't remember the exact number I chose, but it was something pretty low. I think it was even like 1 to 5, maybe 1 to 10. I don't think it would have been 1 to 10. I'll give myself credit and say 1 to 5. I wouldn't be telling this story if we didn't match numbers. So, we match numbers naturally. And I'm just kind of like, okay, whatever. I'm going to eat this salt. That's going to be the end of it. It'll be gross. They'll get some laughs out of it. I respect the game. I lost, whatever. So this friend, and to her, if she ever listens to this, I have to preface this by saying, every time I tell the story and she's around, she always wants everyone to know that she said I could back out. But this game, what are the odds? It should be sacred. It's holy. I respect it, and I lost. The problem was that this friend, the whole like malicious compliance saying, "Oh, you didn't say what size spoon I could use." So she gets essentially a serving size spoon, like one of those like big metal serving spoons, and like fills it up with salt. And I'm like, "Oh, that's that's a lot of salt." And she does a whole, "Well, you didn't say what spoon," thinking she was all clever, which she was, to her credit. She was totally clever. I just don't think she actually thought I was stubborn enough to go through with it. And my wife would say stubbornness. My friends that were there would say stubbornness. But again, it's all out of respect for the game, for me anyway. At least that's what I say to hide my stubbornness. But just don't tell them that. So anyway, I take this spoon of salt, and it's I actually this every time I tell this story, I always kind of I physically react to it. You ever like tell a story, or you like something like jogs your memory and you like are instantly sent back in that moment? Yeah, this story does that to me. And it's I remember it so clearly because of how traumatizing this whole experience was. I take this hefty spoon, serving size spoon of salt, soft pretzel salt, and I'm looking at it, and it's looking back at me somehow. It's looking right into my soul, and things don't usually get me super nervous, but for some reason, my body knew that this was going to be a mistake. And there's this one person on YouTube I watch sometimes called Chubby Emu. If you haven't seen his stuff, I would recommend checking him out. He basically covers crazy medical stories where it's like, oh, someone stubbed their toe. This is what happened to their brain. That's a little bit out there, but not really. Some of the stuff he makes is crazy, and it's all based on like real medical stories. So I was at the height of me watching this guy, and that was kind of going through my head. I'm like, oh, college student eats serving spoon sized soft pretzel salt spoon, whatever. And this is what happened to his eyeballs. And something, it's like a terrible story of how me almost died. And that's all going through my head. And I'm just like, oh, this could actually be like a bad thing because of how much, salt attracts water. So like I could like instantly dehydrate myself. And this could, potentially be bad. But here I am just kind of staring at this pile of salt, and it's staring back at me, and I've got 4 girls, one who I'm dating, just watching me. And of course the one is filming because you can't not, right? It actually takes some mental fortitude for me to force myself to put that whole thing of salt in my mouth. And I do. I get that whole thing of salt in my mouth, and just I will never forget the feeling. Well, I will never forget any of these feelings, but especially the instant dryness that just plagued my mouth. I could not, like, any sort of saliva or mucus, whatever, was just gone. All that salt instantly just sapped it all up. Basically, like, all the muscles were just trying to force down all the mineral that was this salt, but I got it all down eventually, and I knew I had to start drinking lots of water. I just knew it was gonna mess me up. All this salt was gonna I was gonna be on Chubby Umu's YouTube channel, not for good reasons. And I was like, okay, I gotta do everything I can. I gotta drink water, and I'll probably be okay. But while I was trying to convince myself that I would be fine, my body, it was brewing something. Like for the first couple of minutes, I just was kind of in shock of just I can't believe that just happened, and like all my friends were like, "Dude, you're such a stupid idiot. Why'd you do that?" And like my wife was just shaking her head. I can't believe you did that. And then that was it. You know, 5, 10, 15 minutes pass, and we're all chatting, hanging out, had a good laugh out of it. And that's all well and dandy. It's kind of how I thought the story would end. And there wouldn't really be a story. It was just like, oh, remember that time you ate all that salt? Not remember all that time you ate all that salt, and then the rest of the story happened. So about 15 minutes pass, and I'm slowly losing focus with what's going on. Like I'm not going this weird like mind trip brain fog sort of thing, but I'm definitely having a hard time tracking the conversation that's going on, and I'm focusing more on my own nausea that's building up. And part of me was like, okay, I'm going to go throw up in a little bit. Like I definitely feel it coming. To which my friend, who was a psychology major who brought me the salt, and this whole, ordeal is more or less her fault, but also my fault. I take most blame, sure. She's like, "Oh, you're just like you're thinking about it too much, you're psyching yourself out, whatever." But this was the feeling I felt. Like I wanted to believe what she said, but my body would not let me believe what she said. I knew something was coming, but I didn't quite know the scope of what was coming quite yet. So anyway, I just kept kind of like shaking my head and I'm repeating, I just something doesn't feel right. I don't feel great. Now, something that is important for this story is the place we were at. It was sort of like there was a one common place in the middle, and then there were four rooms attached, each with their own bedroom and bathroom. Now there wasn't actually a shared bathroom space that I could take or occupy. When I actually had to go to the bathroom to take care of what was coming, I wasn't gonna go in any of my friends' bathrooms, so I went into my lovely girlfriend's bathroom, and I dismissed myself. I was like, I need to go. I'll be right back. And I walk into her bedroom, shut the door behind me, walk in the bathroom, shut the door behind me. I kind of pause over the toilet, and I had this moment of, is this actually? Oh, yep, it's happening. And I get right down on my knees, and I kind of lean over the toilet, and I mean, this is I spare no details or just doing the whole thing because I you have to understand it how I experienced it. But I start trying to throw up. Now I'm a very healthy person. I have not thrown up very often, and the last time I'd thrown up, I can't even remember before this time. So this is not an experience that I'm used to. And I just start dry heaving. I'm like, oh, like what the heck is going on? Like nothing is coming out. What like oh my whole body is like so tense telling the story because it's terrible and I remember every feeling, including the first time something actually came up. So I only dry heaved a couple of times, but then the first of the salt came and it was just the salt. It wasn't it wasn't anything else. It was just the salt mineral with maybe like a little bit of mucus. There wasn't much stomach acid. There wasn't like my lunch from the day before or that from that day or whatever. It was just the salt, and I will remember the feeling of that little pile of gloppy salt coming up through my throat and just kind of plopping right underneath me. But after, like, I couldn't, in the moment, I'm horrified. I'm like, that was one of the worst things I've ever, like, I was so uncomfortable. That was awful. But then I just, once that kind of happened, the floodgates opened. Nothing inside my stomach was safe. All of that water I just drank was now in the toilet. I probably threw up 3 or 4 times. And each, like you think of, throwing up, you don't really think of the duration of each time you were like doing the action that is throwing up. Each time I I was throwing up, it was probably like 3 plus seconds of just, here's all the liquid I just drank several times. Finally, the nausea leaves me. I'm no longer throwing up, and I'm like, okay, I actually start feeling fine. Like, I can stand up. I feel mostly normal, but holy crap, what just happened? So I walk out, and of course, like, I open up the door to the suite and it's just dead silent. And I'm just like, I don't know what they heard. They probably heard everything. I could have just ended my relationship. I have no idea. And they're all looking at me. And one of them asks if I'm okay, which was nice. And I kind of nodded my head. I was like, yeah, I think I'm okay. And I was actually feeling pretty good. Like, I was feeling just about how I felt right after I ate the salt. So, like, it's still a little uncomfortable, but not, like doomsday levels of gloom. You see, that would be the case if it weren't for the next 15 minutes where I began feeling the same way I had felt 15 minutes after eating the salt initially. And I knew it was gonna be worse this time. Like, something felt different. Like, I thought that first one was bad. Something was really wrong this time. And I don't even remember, like, I don't remember anything of my conversation with them at this point. I just left. I think I just didn't say anything. I just left to the bathroom again. And there was probably like an understanding between the four of them that are we gonna have to call an ambulance? Like, what is going on with this guy? Like, did we just kill him? So I go back into the bathroom. I know immediately, like, this is bad. I lean over the toilet and I'm just waiting for, the inevitable throwing up when it hits me. It doesn't take long. I'm on my knees. My hands are clenching the side of this toilet, and the force of the vomit that left me, it felt like I this is not even I'm not even kidding. I felt like my head was almost being pushed back. And that might be because of the fact that there was so much volume leaving my face that it wasn't just my mouth. It was shooting up into my nasal cavity and out of my nose. And I have never experienced that before. And if I hope no one else has experienced that either, because it was bad. that's that's all I can really say. It was bad. It was one of the worst experiences I think I've ever felt. And you repeat that a couple of times with the duration I mentioned earlier, and you just get a defeated college kid who did all this in front of his girlfriend, in front of his girlfriend's friends who are also his friends. And I had to walk out of that bathroom and explain myself about what just happened. But after that second round, I felt fine. I did not have to go to the hospital. I didn't have to throw up again. And you know what? I didn't have to end up on a Chubby Emu YouTube video. So I call that a win. Anyway, that's it. That's the story of how I felt extremely defeated after losing a game of What Are the Odds? Oh man, I'm glad that one's over. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoyed that one because I sure didn't.